The movie Before Dawn, 2024, unfolds as a harrowing war story set against the bleak and relentless backdrop of World War I, centering on the trauma, camaraderie, and struggle for survival among soldiers. The film poignantly examines the lives of young men thrown into the chaos of trench warfare, their sacrifices, and the haunting emotional burdens they carry. The opening, a harrowing atmosphere. The movie begins on Friday, February 18th, 189 days into the war, narrated by Jim Collins, a young soldier whose thoughts introduce us to the grim reality of their circumstances. Constant shelling, unrelenting rain, and sleep deprivation have created a sense of perpetual dread. Jim laments, "If only I listened," a phrase that recurs like a haunting echo throughout the film. The men in Jim's unit are introduced through daily tasks and casual interactions, their banter masking the looming fear of battle. This early section highlights the psychological toll of the war, with Jim trying to find moments of solace despite the horrors surrounding him. The mission, into no man's land. The plot quickly intensifies when Jim and a group of fellow soldiers, Corporal Bale, Don, Harry Nichols, Arnold Maxwell, Legs, are tasked with a dangerous mission to cross no man's land. Under the cover of darkness, they creep through mud and barbed wire, guided only by occasional gunfire and orders from Bale. The tension builds as machine gun fire erupts, catching the soldiers off guard. Chaos ensues. Jim narrowly avoids death, but Bale is killed, forcing the men to retreat. The scene is visceral, underscoring the fragility of life during wartime. The men return to their trench, battered and emotionally broken. Jim's burden, survivor's guilt. Jim's internal struggle begins to unravel as guilt over the failed mission consumes him. He recounts the losses of comrades like Harry and Ned, whose deaths he feels personally responsible for. A fight breaks out between Jim and Harry's close friend, Archie, who accuses Jim of abandoning his fellow soldiers to save himself. The confrontation is raw, exposing the emotional scars borne by survivors. At night, Jim is haunted by nightmares and flashbacks of the fallen soldiers, particularly Ned, whose dying cries remain etched in his memory. He questions the purpose of the war, his place in it, and whether his father, back home, would feel pride or disappointment in his actions. Bonds of brotherhood, mateship. Despite the war's cruelty, the film emphasizes moments of human connection among the soldiers. The concept of mateship, a bond of loyalty forged in hardship, becomes central to their survival. Jim and Legs share candid moments of vulnerability, discussing their families and dreams beyond the trenches. These exchanges add depth to their characters, revealing that beneath their stoic exteriors, they are young men longing for peace. One poignant scene involves Jim reminiscing about the innocence of home life, something now unimaginable amidst the mud, blood, and gunfire of the front line. The gas attack, a battle for survival. The film's most harrowing sequence comes when the Germans launch a gas attack. Panic erupts as Jim and his comrades scramble to put on their masks. Soldiers choke on the gas, unable to escape. Archie, one of Jim's remaining friends, is severely injured during the chaos, and Jim must carry him back to safety. The gas attack is a turning point for Jim, who realizes that survival demands impossible choices. He struggles to balance his desire to help others with the instinct to preserve his own life. The battle, the final assault. As the war reaches a climax, Jim's unit prepares for one last, desperate assault on the German trenches. The men know the odds are slim, yet they march forward with grim determination. In a rousing speech, their commanding officer declares, "If we beat the Germans here, they'll run all the way back to Germany. Tomorrow, we win this together, and we go home together." The final battle is an unrelenting sequence of explosions, gunfire, and chaos. Jim fights with ferocity, spurred on by the memory of his fallen comrades. However, as the smoke clears, it becomes evident that victory comes at an unimaginable cost. Many of Jim's friends, including Don and Legs, are killed. The aftermath, what was it all for? The battle's aftermath brings a somber tone as Jim walks through the wreckage, surrounded by the dead and wounded. He delivers an emotional monologue reflecting on the futility of war. "What did I think would come from the choice to leave home? It wasn't this. Maybe it was to make something of myself, make my father proud. But I'm just left in debt to these boys." As the survivors gather, they toast their fallen comrades Harry, Ned, Don, and Legs. The sense of loss is palpable, as Jim realizes that even those who lived through the war will carry its weight forever. The ending, a hollow victory. The film concludes with an armistice being declared at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, marking the war's end. Jim and the remaining soldiers celebrate, but their joy is muted by the sacrifices made. Jim, now a shell of his former self, reflects on the cost of survival and the haunting question, what was it all for? As he prepares to return home, the camera lingers on Jim's face, a mix of relief and sorrow. The final shot shows him walking alone through a barren battlefield, the ghosts of his fallen friends lingering in the air. To further expand on the Before Dawn, 2024, I will add additional emotional depth, focus on character relationships, and explore key cinematic choices that enhance the film's impact. Jim's emotional struggles, haunted by loss. As the story progresses, Jim Collins' character is further shaped by the emotional and psychological toll of war. After the gas attack, the physical wounds sustained by Archie and other comrades serve as a grim reminder of their vulnerability. Jim's internal dialogue becomes more introspective and guilt-ridden. He repeatedly whispers, "If only I listened," as if reliving a choice that could have spared lives. These words emphasize survivor's guilt, a recurring theme in the movie. The death of Corporal Bale early in the mission weighs heavily on Jim, as Bale was not just a leader but also a father-like figure for the younger soldiers. In a later scene, Jim finds a photograph of Beale's family, his wife and 2 young children, tucked inside his belongings. Jim clutches the photo, breaking down in private, symbolizing the human cost of the war beyond the battlefield. The growing bond between Jim and Legs. The camaraderie between Jim and Arnold Legs Maxwell provides a much-needed emotional anchor amidst the brutality. Legs, nicknamed for his lanky build and optimistic spirit, often lightens the mood by cracking jokes or sharing stories about home. In one touching moment, Legs shows Jim a letter from his sister, who describes her dream of seeing the ocean for the first time. Jim and Legs share a quiet conversation. "Legs, what's the first thing you'll do when we get back home?" Jim, "Build something. I don't know what yet, but something that lasts." "What about you?" "Legs, take my sister to the beach. She deserves to see something beautiful." This exchange underscores the soldiers' shared humanity, as their dreams for the future contrast sharply with the desolation surrounding them. Their bond grows deeper, making Legs' eventual death during the final assault all the more devastating. Jim cradles his friend's lifeless body, whispering, "You'll see the ocean, Legs. I swear you will." The war's impact on mental health. The film does not shy away from the psychological trauma inflicted on the soldiers. Scenes of shell shock, night terrors, and emotional breakdowns are woven throughout the narrative. One particularly harrowing sequence involves Archie, Harry Nichols' close friend. After witnessing Harry's death, Archie becomes withdrawn and paranoid, muttering incoherently about the noise that doesn't stop. In a haunting moment, Archie attempts to climb out of the trench in broad daylight, screaming, "It's quiet up there," before being pulled back to safety. Jim's response to these events is one of quiet despair. The film frequently uses close-up shots of Jim's face, capturing his internal conflict and unraveling mental state. Flashbacks to his life before the war, simple moments with family, sunlight streaming through a window, serve as painful contrasts to his current reality. The final assault, chaos and courage. The film's climax, the final assault on the German trenches, is a masterclass in tension and raw emotion. The soldiers are given orders to charge at dawn, with the promise that victory will end the war. As they prepare for battle, Jim exchanges a final look with his comrades, each man silently acknowledging the likelihood of death. The assault itself is chaotic and unrelenting. Bullets rain down as the soldiers sprint across no man's land, dodging explosions and falling comrades. Director cinematography captures the horror in painstaking detail, mud splattering the camera lens, cries of pain echoing amidst the gunfire, and slow-motion shots of soldiers collapsing. Jim fights with a grim determination, driven by the memories of Bale, Harry, and Legs. At one point, he rescues an injured soldier, dragging him to cover while narrowly avoiding gunfire. However, the victory comes at a staggering cost. When the smoke clears, Don, Archie, and Legs are among the dead. The silence that follows is almost deafening, a chilling reminder of the price they paid. The aftermath, an empty victory. As news of the armistice spreads, the surviving soldiers celebrate, but their joy is muted by grief. Jim walks through the battlefield, surrounded by the bodies of fallen friends and enemies alike. He delivers a powerful monologue. "We fought for peace, but all I see is silence. We were boys who wanted to come home as men, but what did we become? Just names carved into stone." The contrast between the soldiers' celebration and Jim's disillusionment underscores the futility of war. For Jim, survival feels more like a burden than a blessing. Jim's return home, forever changed. The film's resolution sees Jim returning to his small village. His reunion with his father is quiet and understated. His father, who once spoke of war as a matter of honor, now looks at Jim with a mix of pride and sorrow. The two men share a silent embrace, symbolizing a bond forged through mutual loss. In the final scenes, Jim walks alone to a nearby field, clutching the photograph of Beale's family and Legs' letter. He kneels in the grass, tears streaming down his face, and recites a haiku that Legs once taught him. The dawn is silent. Ghosts whisper in the still air. A promise lingers. The camera pans out, showing Jim as a lone figure amidst the vast, open landscape. The sun rises on the horizon, its light both hopeful and melancholic. Conclusion. The film's somber ending leaves audiences with a lingering sense of grief and reflection. Jim's final act of reciting a haiku in memory of his friends encapsulates the central message: even in the face of unimaginable loss, small moments of beauty and humanity endure. With its gripping narrative, stunning cinematography, and deeply resonant performances, Before Dawn stands as a tribute to those who lived, fought, and died in the trenches, a story of war, sacrifice, and the haunting question, what was it all for? If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movies explanation.